In this video, we'll be going over different types of design sprints you can choose from in the Global Virtual Design Sprint coming up this April. Now, design sprints come in different varieties and flavors depending on what you're trying to achieve and how familiar you are with the process. We'll be going over each of these in detail, but the idea is to pick one that seems to make sense for not only your team, but for the outcome that you're trying to achieve. Now, the original design sprint that was formulated around 2015-2016 was written about extensively by Jake Knapp in a lot of different publications, refined at Google Ventures, and brought out in the Sprint book, which is one of the more popular publications around the method. There are other books and approaches that came out around the same time, such as Richard Banfield's Design Sprint book, which has a more broader approach on the way design sprints are kind of organized and done with different options you can choose from. And then Tenny Pinero had a design thinking lean startup that was based on service design that he continues to promote and do to this day. But essentially, the overall process that most people are aware of with the original design sprint is that it's 5 days for solving problems and testing new ideas. For those that are new to design sprints or to the design sprint process, this is probably the better approach to take. In early 2018, AJ & Smart, an agency out of Berlin, came out with Design Sprint 2.0, which was essentially their take on the original 5-day process optimized for 4 days. This process was the result of a partnership that came about when Jake Knapp and Jonathan Courtney, featured on the upper right, came together to officially say that this was a newer version of the design sprint process that Jake had worked on back in 2016. It essentially is for those who are familiar with the design sprint process and want to optimize their activities to make more out of less time, but still get the same results that came from the original 5-day process. Then early this year, Design Sprint Academy came out with their version called Design Sprint 3.0, which is essentially the 4-day process, but adding problem framing to the mix. For those that aren't familiar with problem framing, it's basically used to find the right target before the sprint even starts, making sure that you get buy-in from stakeholders, that you have the right people on the team, and you're prepping everyone for the design sprint you're going to be endeavoring. It also optimizes a few of the exercises that are normally on day 1 for the 4-day process, and it really centers on adding more design thinking elements and testing the viability, desirability, and feasibility of the idea that everyone is concentrating on. Another classification of the design sprint process that's gaining in popularity and approach is experimental, meaning that you basically take what you know of the design sprint process and mix it or change it based on either the context or the methods that you are familiar with. Some well-known examples of experimental design sprints have been McKinsey's concept sprints that address strategic needs of a business, 3-day versions of the design sprint that Home Depot has done and that Google also experiments with, 1-day design sprints and brain sprints, there's research sprints, all sorts of variations that combine a lot of different methods. But essentially what you're attempting to do is leverage what tools you have with the strengths of the team you have and combine them into a package that will elicit the right outcomes that you're looking for as a business or even as a team. Finally, there's 2 classifications of sprints that the Global Virtual Design Sprint handles, which are competitive sprints and partner sprints. Now, competitive ones are just like they sound. Essentially, you're going to be pitting around 3 to 4 design sprint teams on the same challenge to compete for either notoriety, monetary compensation, or some other outcome that's related to the sponsor that's promoting the competition. Partner design sprints usually involve a sponsor as well, but they also are localized to a particular community or endeavor or charity. So it could involve a lot of employees at a particular company. It could involve a local charity that the virtual design sprint does work for. Whatever it may be, a partner design sprint tends to be closer to a group or community where the outcome of the design sprint can really matter to them. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any comments or questions, please post them below. Otherwise, subscribe or like at your leisure, and stay tuned for more videos on the Global Virtual Design Sprint.